fight for God, honor, country, family, yourself, I do not care. You fight!
Confederate military belt buckles reflected a vast array of state individuality. Much of this is due to the fact that unlike the North, which issued military supplies through the centralized federal government, each southern state provided much of the uniform and equipment to its troops in the field.
Because of this, troops from Virginia were often uniformed slightly different than troops from Mississippi or North Carolina.
One of the distinctive differences appeared in the military belt buckles that soldiers wore. Aside from the many state designs, there were government waist belt plates issued that displayed the CS or CSA lettering, which identified the wearer as a Confederate soldier. Many varieties were issued, as opposed to the U.S. government, which produced only two types of U.S. enlisted belt plates for its troops. One being an oval U.S., the other a rectangular eagle.
Here are three examples of the Virginia state plate. The top Virginia plate is still on its original belt. This belt plate was produced in the South during the war. In this die-struck example, the female figure can clearly be seen standing over the conquered foe with the motto Sic Semper Tyrannis, which means, thus always to tyrants. This two-piece interlocking example was very popular among Confederate officers. The Georgia state plate is seen here in two variations. Here is the popular style interlocking two-piece officer's plate, this time with the crest of Kentucky in the center. North Carolina produced many variations in state plates. The interlocking belt plate had two pieces. One piece was called the spoon, the other piece was called the wreath. The spoon was inserted into the wreath and then turned to lock, which completed the mechanism and held the belt together. This is an excavated example of a very rare buckle. It's a state plate produced by the state of Alabama. Here is a cartridge box sling plate produced for the state of South Carolina for her troops, showing the state seal. Here is an interlocking South Carolina officer's belt plate, clearly showing the palmetto tree, a symbol of South Carolina. This is a very interesting Confederate States variant belt plate. It was originally a U.S. belt plate, and a Confederate soldier changed the configuration of the U to be a C, thus making it Confederate States.
Northern and Southern militia companies often had specially contracted belt plates in the pre-war days.
Here are two examples of early war Ohio volunteer militia belt plates used by enlisted men in some of the first regiments raised by the state of Ohio. The top example was excavated on the battlefield of Antietam near Dunker Church. New York officers had the option of buying a sword belt plate with the Old English letters NY on the face of it.
When the war began, the South could no longer get buckles and buttons from northern sources. They were forced to have dies made overseas, mostly in England. The dies were sent across the ocean to southern manufacturers who then produced the product. Some dies were made in the South, but were primitive and produced inferior products. These wartime southern manufactured plates are known as locals. These belt plates were sometimes elaborate in design and always reflected the pride each individual had in his home state. Another type of Confederate military buckle has no insignia at all. These buckles are minimal in appearance, easy to manufacture, and very serviceable. Most of these buckles are sand cast, which requires little technical skill. Many of these buckles saw military service and were seen in all parts of the Confederate Army.
Looking at Confederate belt plates is like looking into a microcosm of the war itself. The South had difficulty manufacturing and distributing these belt plates to our troops in the field. The diversity of plates and equipment shows just how difficult that whole process was.